In the third year of my marriage to Mike, he discovered a new flame. The evening I caught them, he nonchalantly mentioned, "Lily, marriages need a bit of zest to keep things interesting. Sarah's fiancé is a solid guy. Want to give it a shot with him?" Later, the four of us found ourselves in a quiet, private room, and Ethan coldly turned down Sarah's moves. "Sorry, I'm not down with someone else's wife." Mike, surprisingly chill, remarked, "Well, that's a bummer," but I couldn't resist stealing a glance at Ethan. The Ethan who had been insatiable with me just 2 nights earlier. It wasn't the first time Mike had been rumored to be seeing other women during our 3-year marriage. Before, he'd either just flirt around or have a discreet one-night stand without telling me. But this time, he seemed really into it. Lily, a fearless woman raised overseas, was the one catching his attention this round. When I walked in, I saw Lily lounging on the sofa in my new lingerie that I hadn't even worn yet. Mike was probably taking a shower in the nearby bathroom. Lily just gave me a sly smile. "Hey, Mia." Standing in the hallway with my suitcase, it took me a moment to dryly comment, "Looks like you're rocking my lingerie." Lily gave me a casual glance and then stood up to flaunt her curvy figure, saying, "But it suits me better." "You're a bit too skinny to fill it out." The lingerie was a lacy camisole with built-in padding, a gift Mike had bought me last month. This type might suit Mike's taste, but my dancer's body was never his style. Lily, on the other hand, radiated energy and charm. No wonder Mike was hooked on her for 3 passionate months, even daring to bring her into our marital bed when I was away. As she tossed the lingerie to me, Lily teased, "Mia, you're so generous. Want to crash here tonight?" I calmly eyed the woman before me, feeling wiped from a long flight, just wanting a quick shower and some rest. If Lily wanted to stay, I'd rather book a hotel for the night. Before Lily could answer, Mike came out of the bathroom in just a towel. Seeing me, he briefly showed surprise before regaining his composure. "Mia, why didn't you call before coming back?" Mike set the towel down and walked over to me. His voice softened. "Sorry, I'll send her away right away." I shrugged him off, saying, "I'm gonna take a shower, I'm beat." As I was finishing my skincare routine after the shower, Mike came back with Lily. He stood beside me, not hiding the visible love bites on his neck. When I paused with my hand cream, I couldn't help but mention, "Lily doesn't seem single. Maybe you should keep it low-key." Mike, looking at me seriously, suddenly laughed. He leaned in, grabbing my shoulder. "Mia, if marriage gets dull, trouble's bound to follow. We can't divorce, so a little excitement is needed to spice things up." Looking at the guy in the mirror, I grew up knowing that marriage in our kind of family wouldn't grant me freedom. Yet when we married, I still hoped for my husband. At least we'd known each other since childhood, and he had been loving and attentive after our engagement. But with his constant involvement with other women, my illusions were shattered. Lily's fiancé is said to be a great guy, Mike mentioned casually, kissing my cheek. "Mia, want to give it a try with him? He's the type of guy you dig, kind of like your fave male celebs. Let's meet as friends first, then, if you click and feel up to it, we can take it from there. What do you say?" As I stared at my reflection in the mirror, I realized my husband was suggesting I get involved with a stranger and build a twisted relationship. Little did he know, my trip to Italy wasn't for work, but to reconnect with a guy I once dated. We spent 3 days and nights together, lost in a dreamy haze. For the first time, I felt the sweet taste of revenge. "Sure, let's meet him first." Like friends, we set up a meeting for the next evening. When picking out clothes for the occasion, Mike suddenly commented, "Mia, what's that mark on your neck?" I glanced at the love mark and replied casually, "A mosquito bit me in the hotel. Should I cover it up?" "Nah, it's cool." I declined his offer. Mike stopped pressing and started picking out a tie. In the end, I ditched the pastel colors I usually loved and went for a red dress instead. Mike, a bit surprised, noted, "I thought you didn't like bright dresses." "I'm tired of the light ones," I responded as Mike helped with the zipper and watched me touch up my makeup. Then, with a hint of jealousy, he remarked, "I suddenly don't feel like letting you go anymore. Want to bail?" He frowned but paused before insisting, "We've made plans. Can't back out now." I bent down to switch into heels, and Mike's gaze lingered on my ankles and calves. "Mia, you're looking more stunning after your business trip." I smiled at him. Maybe the air and vibes in Italy are doing me good. In the top-floor private room of the upscale club, as Mike led me in, I immediately spotted Lily's companion, a man in a sharp black suit with a crisp buttoned shirt exuding sophistication and detachment. Even Lily, usually bold and daring, sat quietly beside him. One look was enough for me to slowly lower my eyelids, clutching my purse tightly with nervous fingers. I hadn't expected this. A few days ago, Ethan, whom I was tangled with day and night in Italy, turned out to be Lily's fiancé, whom I was meeting tonight. Ethan, this is my wife, Mia. Mike introduced us when we first met. Ethan seemed nervous, his voice slightly shaky. Nice to meet you, Ethan, I managed to say calmly as I looked at him. We're all adults and we get the situation. Ethan looked back at me and greeted, Mia, pleasure to meet you. I was seated next to Ethan, with Mike next to Lily. The room's vibe was odd, yet there was an unspoken understanding. Not until halfway through dinner did Lily, perhaps due to some whining, start chatting more. Ethan, what do you think of Mia? I told you she's beautiful, but too thin. But you seem to like girls who are pale and slim? Lily asked, eyeing me. I didn't respond, just quietly ate a small piece of dessert. Suddenly, a warm hand landed on my exposed knee, making me flinch and crush the beautiful dessert. Mike asked concernedly, Mia, what's up? I shook my head. It's nothing, just slipped. But my neck felt hot, and my ears were burning. In the morning, I noticed my ear piercings were a bit inflamed, and now they were itching and sore. I couldn't help but lightly massage them. Suddenly, I thought of the intimate moment when that guy was nibbling on my earlobe that night. And now, under the cover of the white lace tablecloth, his long and strong fingers had already landed on the inside of my thigh. I tensed up, but then Ethan spoke calmly, almost casually. Sorry, I'm not into other people's wives. I glanced at Ethan, the guy who was passionately entangled with me in bed that night. Didn't say such things. Lily chuckled awkwardly. Mike looked surprised for a moment, but then relaxed and even smiled. That's a pity, Mike said. I sat quietly with lowered eyes, trying to push away the guy's wandering hand under the tablecloth. But Ethan clasped my hand with his, and I winced and lightly called out, Mia. Mike looked at me, ready to get up. It's just a little accident, I said, my back sweating nervously. Ethan gently held my hand as if to reassure me. Then, let go. And I breathed a sigh of relief and straightened out my messy skirt. As we were leaving, Mike was supposed to take me home, but he suddenly got a call, looking apologetic. Mia, there's something urgent at the company. Should I have the driver pick you up? Lily suddenly chimed in. Why don't Ethan and I take Mia home? Wouldn't that be too much trouble? Mike looked cautiously at Ethan. Ethan didn't refuse, but didn't agree either. Not at all. Mike. You go handle your stuff, Ethan, Lily insisted. After gently instructing me, Mike hurriedly left. But as soon as he left, Lily excused herself to the restroom and disappeared. I sensed something was off. Instinctively, I looked at Ethan beside me. He leaned back on the chair, looking relaxed, yet naturally exuding an intimidating aura. I picked up my handbag, intending to stand up, but Ethan reached out and grabbed my wrist. The red dress looks gorgeous on you, I said as my eyelashes fluttered, trying to divert my gaze. Just a random choice, but my cheeks were slightly flushed. When picking my outfit, I couldn't help but think back to that night. He praised me for looking good in red, saying it complemented my skin tone. Ethan suddenly chuckled softly, applying slight pressure with the fingers that held my wrist. Before I knew it, I was pulled into his arms. I stiffened as soon as I touched his hard thigh and tried to get up immediately. Hiding from me, Ethan held my waist, his voice low. I closed my eyes, slowly, taking a deep breath. Honestly, if I had known Ethan had a fiancé, I wouldn't have gone to the hotel with him that night in Italy. I asked him about it back then, and he said he wasn't married and didn't have a girlfriend. So it's not entirely his fault. He didn't lie to me. He indeed wasn't married and didn't have a girlfriend. He just had a fiancé. Ethan, I'm sorry. Why are you apologizing? First, I didn't expect you to have a fiancé. It was my oversight. Second, I knew Lily's fiancé was named Ethan, but I didn't think much and still came here tonight causing you trouble. I apologized earnestly, lowering his hand holding my waist. I stood up, offering a sincere apology. What trouble have you caused me? Ethan leaned back in his chair, his tone still indifferent, But my heart raced, and the light from above cast a glow between his deep eyes and the bridge of his nose. With his high nose bridge and well-defined facial features, he looked exceptionally handsome. He was slightly taller than Mike, and his figure looked flattering in a suit with broad shoulders and a narrow waist, showing a lean body. But underneath his clothes, his shoulders, back, and abdomen looked stronger than Mike's. I knew escaping unscathed from a guy like him was unlikely. At this moment, I had no other choice but to humble myself and hope he would let it go. You mentioned earlier that you're not into other people's wives. I met his gaze boldly, so I was worried and thought I caused you trouble. You're worried now. Isn't it a bit too late? I was speechless. Yes, he never asked me, but back then, I didn't openly tell him that I was already married. I'm sorry. I apologized again, too embarrassed to look at him, my voice trembling. You should have noticed the relationship between Lily and me, I said softly. He nodded slightly. Indeed, there seemed to be some kind of open relationship between them. He also didn't seem to mind his fiancé being involved with other men. So, concerning Lily, you need not worry about causing me trouble. But Mia, Ethan stood up slowly as he spoke. Approaching me with his tall figure completely overshadowing me, I instinctively stepped back, but he lightly grasped my wrist. I mind the fact that you're Mike's wife, Ethan said, his eyes cold when he didn't smile. He then moved his slender fingers from my wrist to my jaw, causing me to shudder slightly. I couldn't help but wonder about a guy who could make Mike, who always held himself in high regard, feel fear. I was afraid to think about what his background might entail. I had deceived him and embarrassed him. How would he retaliate against me? I'm sorry, I stammered. What else do you have to say apart from, I'm sorry? Ethan asked, holding onto my wrist and gripping my lower back. Mia. He said my name softly, kissing me lightly. He then bit my bottom lip gently, asking for a response. There was still something to discuss about this, Ethan added. I didn't know how far I needed to go to satisfy him. I also didn't know how long I voluntarily kissed him back. All I could vaguely remember was that my legs were so weak that I couldn't stand. Ethan and I were on the brink of pushing things too far, but then he pushed me away. I sat back in the chair, feeling disheveled. After a while, he calmly straightened his clothes and finally said, Let's go, I'll take you home. Lily was already in the passenger seat, and without glancing at her, I noticed her eyeing me multiple times as I got into the car. When we arrived outside the villa gate, I thanked Ethan softly and left without waiting for the car to stop. Mike hadn't returned home yet. Feeling tired, I took a shower and dried my hair. He called to apologize, saying the company matters were serious, and he might not be back that night. As I lay down on the bed, my mind wasn't cluttered with thoughts, nor was I interested in verifying Mike's words. But I wasn't expecting that this time, Mike wasn't lying to me. For a whole week, Mike didn't come home. There was no news from Ethan either. I had no idea. At that moment, Mike was standing in Ethan's office with a pale face. On the table in front of him lay a stack of photos showing him and Lily during their secret meetings. Mike, Ethan's imposing presence, still loomed over him, making Mike regret deeply. He regretted being misled by Lily and falling into such a dangerous affair. Most importantly, he regretted being so careless and getting caught in so many compromising pictures on his own turf. Even though Lily and Ethan were doing their own thing without interfering with each other, creating a big public scandal was another matter. Moreover, these photos were bought at a hefty price by Ethan. For the first time in his life, Mike felt a life-threatening fear. Mike, at this stage, what do you propose to solve this? Ethan sat calmly, but his aura still managed to overpower Mike. Mike was sweating, knowing the consequences of this situation. Every obstacle in his company was a means of retaliation orchestrated by Ethan. But he couldn't even complain, as he knew it was his own fault. Mr. Mike, you don't need to tell me these things. I just need a reasonable solution and compensation. It seemed like Mike had found a lifeline. How has Mia been lately? Ethan's question hit Mike like an electric shock. He knew Ethan wouldn't mention Mia without a reason. Does Ethan have an interest in Mia? Last time, following Lily's instructions, Mike had brought Mia to the appointment. Ethan's attitude was clear. He didn't like married women. I've been busy with company matters and haven't been home. I haven't seen her. Carefully choosing his words, Mike looked at Ethan's face for any signs. Ethan just nodded slightly. Send my regards to Mia. Okay, Ethan. As Ethan got up to end the conversation, Mike felt relieved, but simultaneously an indescribable emotion surged within him. Even if he was a fool, he could see it. Ethan had an interest in his wife, and he had to act as if he knew nothing and hand his wife over to him to save himself and his company. Mike had no other choice. He didn't even resist for long. By the way, Mike, as Ethan was leaving the office, he stopped and looked back at Mike. I'm not into someone else's wife. It took Mike half a minute to come back to his senses. He finally understood how foolish he had been. The last time they had met, Ethan uttered these words meaningfully. It's not that he's not interested in Mia. He's subtly but clearly reminding you that he's concerned about Mia, because she's Mike's wife. When Mike returned, I had just woken up from a nap. He walked into the bedroom, stood by the bed, and watched me for a while without saying a word. Is the company issue resolved? I furrowed my brows and asked. Mia, Mike suddenly held my hand. I've wronged you these years. I was surprised, but before I could say anything, he softly added, let's get a divorce. Don't worry, the divorce won't affect your family or your interests. His face was pale, but his eyes were bloodshot. It seemed like he didn't need my response, just stating his decision. I had thought about divorce before. Without a doubt, I would be pressured to remarry by my family, but it would only lead to repeating the same tragic story. Weighing the pros and cons, at least Mike and I had known each other for many years, and there was a deep connection between our families. But now that Mike brought it up himself, I suddenly felt that divorce might not be a bad thing. Moreover, he said it wouldn't affect us. I had long been utterly disappointed in marriage. Maybe I would stay single forever. The decision to divorce Mike was finalized within 2 hours. The terms of the divorce agreement were favorable to our family, so I didn't hesitate to sign it. Let's grab a meal together, Mike said, glancing at me while driving. Mia, I've booked a restaurant you like. I agreed without much thought, assuming it would be our last dinner together. Little did I know, Ethan would be there. Looking at Mike, I asked stiffly, so, you invited Ethan? Mike looked away and replied, Mia, we're just having a meal together. Just having a meal? I countered. Mike avoided the question, but I already knew the answer and stayed silent. I simply thought it would be our final meal together. But I never expected his plan. Ethan showed up. He didn't comfort me or make snide remarks. He patiently handed me tissues to wipe away my tears. He wiped my tears for however long I cried, until my eyes were swollen and tired. Go wash your face, then we'll eat something, Ethan said, ushering me to the bathroom. I went to the bathroom, while Ethan went to the end of the hallway to smoke. Mike followed, saying, Ethan and I are divorced now. Ethan's voice was cold. From now on, remember your place. Mike smiled. Ethan, someone like you must have more than one woman. Ethan turned and looked at him coldly as Mike murmured, once you return to Italy, I will remarry Mia. Mike, you won't have that chance, Ethan said firmly. Mike widened his eyes in shock. Ethan, what do you mean? After extinguishing his cigarette, Ethan said indifferently, do you think I just acted out of impulse? Ethan looked down at Mike from a superior position. He had gone through countless sleepless nights to achieve his goal, but he knew that from now on, Mia would be by his side every night. Mike's eyes widened in horror as he took a few steps back. It was you scheming against me. You set me up. You even dared to use your fiancé as a pawn. Ethan regarded Mike as if he were a fool. Mike, you're even dumber than I thought. How could a woman like Lily be your fiancé? And how could a man use his fiancé as a tool to seduce someone else? Ethan, aren't you afraid I'll tell Mia? Mike asked. Feel free to, Ethan said calmly and stepped closer. If you want everyone to admire your bedroom skills, then by all means, tell Mia everything. You're shameless, Ethan, Mike shouted, but then his voice lowered. Ethan no longer paid attention to Mike's outburst. Shameless. If being shameless means not enduring the torment of losing sleep over someone day and night, then I'd rather be called shameless. Exiting the bathroom, after hanging up on my mom's call, Mike's mother called me. Both families seemed to have found out about the divorce. Feeling drained, I refused Mike's mother's call for the first time. But within 5 minutes, my mom called again. Mia, were you being rude? Our families haven't approved of the divorce yet. I felt exhausted and told my mom to talk to Mike, asking her not to call me anymore. As soon as I hung up, the phone started ringing again, so I turned it off. Feeling troubled, Ethan suddenly suggested, "Why don't you come with me to Italy for a while? Consider it a getaway." I couldn't help but scrutinize the man before me. He was born with outstanding credentials and a mysterious background, all because of a simple statement that he wasn't interested in someone else's wife. I went from Mia to single. This kind of guy, he gets what he wants effortlessly, especially since that night, it was my choice. The hotel was where I wanted to go. Last time in Italy, no one forced me to go. Those 3 days and nights were happy. From Mia to single, even the last emotional burden is gone. But back then, I thought he was single, but now he has a fiancé. Ethan, thanks for your kindness, but now that I know you have a fiancé, Mia, Ethan suddenly held my hand and rubbed the faint mark on my ring finger. And then it hit me. Ethan's left hand wasn't wearing an engagement ring. It was the same since the first time I was with him. But that didn't prove anything. Married men who don't wear wedding bands are everywhere. I instinctively pulled my hand back. But Ethan looked at me and seriously said, "Lily and I have nothing between us." She's an artist signed with one of my entertainment companies overseas. I provide resources. She helps me avoid unnecessary troubles. Too many people trying to push women to my side. Ethan held my hand lightly and asked, "Mia, is there anything else you want to ask?" My mind went blank for a moment, but in a flash, I caught on to something. Was Lily and Mike's situation at your behest? They were more of a boss and subordinate relationship than a collaboration. Lily clearly feared him and obeyed him. Even if it was just a front, Lily didn't dare be unclear with other men. Ethan's expression didn't change at all. He looked at me seriously and said, "Lily met Mike when she was filming a promotional video for his company. They got to know each other. That night, Mike asked her out for dinner. Lily refused 3 times. Mike persisted. Ethan chuckled. Mia, we didn't even know each other back then. Why would I orchestrate Lily seducing Mike?" He wasn't wrong. Ethan was in Italy at the time, and he didn't seem like a guy with that kind of spare time. Besides, a woman like Lily was custom made for Mike. Every part of her catered to his preferences. I understood. In reality, delving into these issues now seemed meaningless. Mike didn't cheat because of Lily. Even without Lily, there would have been other women. I suddenly felt all the past grievances dissolve, but I was in no mood to reminisce. "How long are we going?" I asked Ethan. "How long do you want to go for?" I was thinking 2 weeks or 1 week. How long does Mike's interest in women usually last? That could be a reference, but sometimes a day, sometimes a week. Lily lasted 3 months, maybe even longer in the future. I hesitated. "There's a month until Christmas. Why not spend the festival in Italy?" Ethan suggested. "There's gonna be a cruise party on Christmas Eve with fireworks all night," he added. "I see Mike's place is gonna be chaotic for a while. His mother is really tough to deal with. And your mother, you staying here would also be troublesome. It's better to get out for a while." His words intrigued me. Moreover, those 3 days in Italy. I had a great time with him. If you have fun, stay longer. If you want to come back, I'll drive you. Mia with me, you don't need to worry about anything. I thought seriously for a moment, then nodded. Okay. Ethan seemed to be in a good mood. "Let's go home first. You need to rest well tonight." He naturally took my hand and led me out. We got into the car and returned to his place. The first time between a man and a woman is often tricky, but after the first time, everything else seems to fall into place. As I changed shoes, Ethan gently held my waist. As I straightened up, he leaned me against the door and kissed me. I had some red wine at dinner. I was feeling a little tipsy. He carried me to the bathroom, and I hung on him softly, leaning on his shoulders. "Need to gain a little weight." Ethan's hand moved down my back. His voice tinged with a smile, yet containing a subtle tenderness that was hard to detect. I could even feel his fingertips grazing every inch of my spine. I was always under strict weight regulations by my teachers. I often went hungry and got used to eating very little. Dieting isn't good for the body. Forgot when you almost fainted due to low blood sugar in Italy last time. He put me on the vanity, planting kisses on my neck. The hem of my dress rolled up, brushing against his crotch. His kisses made me a little breathless, but eating too much makes my stomach uncomfortable. "Don't rush. We can adjust gradually." he said as he unzipped the back of my dress. The silk dress slipped down like water, piling at my waist. Ethan's kisses continued downward. Mia, spread your legs. He pushed my knees apart. Then he held my ankles, making me hook his waist. Ethan? I instinctively pinched his strong arm. The halo above my head gently descended, casting a dreamy light. Maybe the light was too gentle, tinting his brows and eyes with a soft hue. I found myself somewhat captivated and lost in his gaze. After a while, the vanity was a mess. Ethan kissed my sweaty forehead. Let's take a bath. I don't wanna. Okay, he said, but it was all to coax me. By the end, the bathroom was in such a mess it was unbearable. Water was everywhere. Ethan, don't let the maid come clean this up tomorrow, I said as he carried me back to the bedroom with a smile in his voice. Okay, I'll clean it up tomorrow, he replied. I was so tired and sleepy, I really didn't want him to. It's fine, I said, lying on his chest, yawning and closing my eyes. Ethan, if you want to end this, remember to tell me in advance, I said, opening my eyes sleepily. I didn't hear his response. So tired, I couldn't keep my eyes open. Ethan laid me on the bed and covered me with a blanket. I slept deeply, unaware that he bent down to kiss my forehead tenderly before heading out to the terrace to make a call. Just get ready for what I've told you guys, he said, looking out at the vast sky. It's time for celebrations. The day before our departure to Italy, I had dinner with my best friend Laura. As we were about to finish, Ethan called me. Mia, I'll come pick you up in a bit, he said. Laura and I wanted to chat a bit longer. You don't have to pick me up. We can just call a cab. Just call me when you're done and I'll come get you, Ethan insisted. All right, I agreed. Ending the call, Laura observed me with interest. Mia, something seems off with you, really? I asked, surprised. How so? Laura smirked mischievously. I don't know, you just seemed so gentle and womanly when you were on the phone with Mike before. I frowned. What do you mean? Laura smiled knowingly. You were soft and feminine, but today you were different. I frowned, wondering if I had ever been happy during my marriage to Mike. Laura squeezed my hand, looking at me earnestly. I want you to be happy, Mia. I never saw happiness on your face during those years you were married. Laura's words shook me. Was I happy? There were moments during the honeymoon period, but they disappeared as quickly as Mike's infidelity scandal emerged. Although I didn't know Ethan well, Laura's observations struck a chord with me. Laura held my hand tightly. You are my best friend, Mia. I hope this time you meet the right person in your life. But would he be the one? I thought about the night I first met Ethan. Why did I notice him among so many people? And why did I, always cautious and proper, suddenly have rebellious thoughts and let loose that night? From that night through the 3 days and nights in Italy, I thought it was just a fling between experienced adults. I didn't know what would happen during our trip to Italy or how it would end. Life is full of uncertainties. Maybe it's better not to think too much. Being with someone you like and doing enjoyable things is enough. When Ethan arrived to pick me up, Laura and I watched from behind the glass window. The city at night was bustling with lights flowing like a river. As Ethan got out of the car and walked towards the restaurant, Laura nudged me. Not bad, eh? That handsome man of yours. She teased. I blushed. Ethan may seem aloof, but you don't know him like I do. Why are you blushing? Laura nudged me. You're glowing after being watered by your man. Don't tell me you're hiding some new project from me. Uncomfortable with her teasing, I grabbed my purses to leave. Go find your romance. I have a lot to say once you do. Laura cheekily waved as she left. Ethan then offered to drop Laura home, but she declined. As she walked away, she bumped into a man. Sorry, sir, I didn't mean to. Laura apologized. No worries, he said before walking towards the restaurant. Laura, be more careful when walking next time, I scolded her, remembering her past accidents. Laura reassured me, clinging to my arm. Meanwhile, the man who had turned away suddenly turned back and spoke to Laura. You're Laura, he asked, catching her off guard. Yes, I am, Laura replied casually, and that was the first meeting between 34-year-old Felix and 24-year-old Laura. At the time, none of us knew what would transpire between them or between me and Ethan. Unbeknownst to us, some stories had already begun writing their own chapters. As the day we were set to depart for Italy approached, I received a call from an unknown number. It turned out to be Mike's mother. I just answered the phone before I could even speak. She started scolding me angrily. Mia, even though you and Mike are divorced, you went to Italy with another guy just days after signing the papers. Where do you put our family's reputation? Is this how your parents raised you? You've been married into our family for 3 years, living off the good food and drinks at Mike's house. You couldn't have kids. I never asked Mike to divorce you. But look at you. As soon as the company had trouble, you left just like that. She was clearly very upset, speaking more and more harshly. I'm telling you, I can't swallow this anger. How much benefit has your family gained from ours over the years? You can't live like this without a conscience. I couldn't help but interrupt her. If you have any complaints about the business cooperation between our families, please discuss it with my father or brother. I have never been involved in any business matters from the beginning to the end. If you have any objections to the divorce, please go talk to your son and ask for the reasons. My words choked her for a moment. Mia, what do you mean by that? Are you completely innocent and faultless? Please don't call me anymore. Mike and I are no longer husband and wife. We have no relationship with you. Please stop harassing me. I was tired of talking, so I just hung up the phone. But my good mood was ruined by this woman, who acted all high and mighty. I sat on the sofa not wanting to talk. Ethan pulled me up. Go change into a pretty dress. I'll take you to see the fireworks tonight. Ethan, I'm so tired. I didn't want to move or talk. I leaned on his chest, speaking in a weak voice. Ethan ruffled my hair. There won't be these troublesome matters in the future. Really? Of course. Ethan then kissed me on the forehead. Don't be unhappy. Trust me. Women are emotional creatures. Just an hour ago, I was in a bad mood. Now standing under the fireworks in a beautiful new dress, my mood suddenly lifted. Unexpectedly, there was a classical dance performance at the cruise party. I was mesmerized watching it. A few of the dancing girls suddenly rushed over and brought me to the stage. Apart from the dance classes after marriage, I had hardly participated in any performances. Being on stage dancing felt like a distant memory, but I quickly caught up with the rhythm. As my dress swayed, I found myself thinking, Ethan must have planned for me to wear this dress. After the dance ended, the music transitioned to a beautiful and melodious violin solo. The fireworks were dazzling in the sky. Ethan, now in formal wear, approached me with a bouquet of roses. I froze. He looked like he was about to propose, but between us, it was just a fleeting moment of infatuation. Yet Ethan was already on one knee, surrounded by numerous laughter and applause. I was gently pushed in front of him, distracted and unable to process. The ring was already on my ring finger. Mia, can you help me put it on too? Ethan looked at me, offering his left hand. In that moment, my heart suddenly felt at peace. Ethan, I held the ring, smiling at him, tears uncontrollably falling. I'll trust you once, but only once. The ring slowly slid onto his finger. Ethan stood up and hugged me tightly. Mia, I'll prove it to you for a lifetime. Mike didn't bother me anymore. I heard his company was still not doing well, keeping him very busy. His mother was also busy, looking for a new daughter-in-law to her liking. Hurry up, marry, and have kids for their family. My family occasionally called. Even my usually strict father had been much kinder to me, but I knew well, I wouldn't let my family climb up to Ethan, nor would I bring unnecessary troubles to Ethan. So, towards my family, I always maintained a polite and distant attitude. I heard my father was very displeased about it. He once scolded me after drinking, "Is sacrificing your own happiness for the benefit of your family, right?" Then, I'd rather be an annoying daughter. Ethan and I got engaged in the blooming month of March. Laura naturally came to Italy on my engagement day, but the lively and carefree girl from the past now seemed to carry a faint melancholy between her brows. I asked if she was in love, or had found someone she liked. Laura shook her head. Mia, I don't even know if we're in love. Even though we see each other every day, I don't even know if we're in love. Even though we see each other every day, I still feel like there's a great distance between us. As she spoke, her eyes turned red. Mia, liking someone should bring happiness, so why do I always feel sad? I could only try to comfort her. Laura, remember, even if you like someone a lot, you have to put yourself first. If it's really painful, force yourself to let go. Laura suddenly burst into tears. But I can't, Mia. I really like him. Just the thought of breaking up with him makes me unbearably sad. Why not spend some time in Italy and think it through calmly? But Laura was restless, constantly staring at her phone. She was eagerly awaiting his calls and messages. The day after my engagement ceremony, she hastily flew back to New York. I was worried about her, but Ethan advised me, let her go. These things can't be forced. Is that so? Of course, you can't force matters of the heart, just like how I only like you. Did you smear honey on your lips today, Ethan? I couldn't help but laugh, but a sweet feeling rose in my heart again. Laura was right. Liking someone should be a happy thing after all. Do you want to try it? Ethan lowered his head to kiss me. I dodged a couple of times, then just let him do as he pleased. Ethan's epilogue ***. When Ethan and I got married, Mike got into deep trouble. His business suffered setbacks, and he was heavily in debt. Feeling down, he went to Australia for a break. First, he lost money gambling, then he was framed. He ended up in a messy situation in a hotel room. It took his family a lot of effort to come up with $10 million to get him out. But from then on, he was completely ruined. His mother was so upset she almost had a heart attack. I didn't let Mia know about any of this. She was about to become my bride, and our wedding was a joyful occasion. I didn't let Mia know about any of this. She was about to become my bride, and our wedding was a joyful occasion. I didn't want these insignificant people and matters to ruin her happiness. Mike's ending was quite predictable. A man like him, indecisive and chasing after women, was bound to fall because of a woman sooner or later. I just have some regrets. Why did I meet Mia so late in life? If we had met before she got married, she wouldn't have suffered for 3 years. But also, I'm grateful. That night, I didn't reject her in her embarrassed state. That night, almost as if under a spell, I took her back to the hotel. After she showered, she stood before me like a rose, seeing her still gentle and beautiful face. I realized that everything was destined by a higher power, just like when I first fell for her when she was young. Years later, I find myself falling for her all over again. But Mia no longer remembers me. She is already someone else's wife. But that doesn't matter. Marriage can end in divorce, especially with a dirty husband like hers. As I took off her bathrobe and kissed her, she cried. I knew for Mia, she must have endured a lot of disappointment to take this step. I felt immensely lucky that she chose me, and I didn't push her away. At first, she was nervous and stiff, crying all the while. I comforted her for a long time, until she relaxed and surrendered. In the end, she melted beneath me like soft water. I whispered my name to her repeatedly, not letting her stop. As she relaxed, there was still a hint of grievance in her eyes. I held her, and she was obedient in my arms. Perhaps she was just too tired to push me away. Half asleep, she cautioned me. We'll be strangers tomorrow. We shouldn't see each other again. But how could she know? At this point, how could I let go? It was from that night on that I made the decision. Step by step, I brought her closer to me. I will love only you wholeheartedly for the rest of my life, but this secret I will take to my grave. Mia changed into her wedding gown. I handed the phone to my assistant and walked toward her. She looked at me shyly and tenderly, smiling. Dressed in a complex and exquisite white wedding gown, she looked as beautiful as a lily, just like she did when she was 14, riding her bike in a white dress, playfully steering with one hand, the other hand holding an ice cream cone. The ice cream was melting, dirtying her hand. She panicked. The bike swerved, and she crashed right into the front of my car. She fell, scraped her shin, and bled a lot, crying in pain. When I helped her up, her melted ice cream was all over my shirt. She sobbed, still managing to apologize to me. I took her to a nearby clinic. As the doctor cleaned her wound, she cried delicately. I covered her eyes, shielding her from the sight, clumsily trying to comfort her. Later, her classmate came to take her away, saying the dance teacher was getting impatient. She freed herself from my grasp, hurriedly thanked me, and left quickly. I thought we would meet again soon, but unexpectedly, the next day, my mother and I were taken to Italy by my biological father. My half-brother and his family died in a car accident, leaving no children behind. I became my father's only son. My humble mother finally entered the family's gates as she wished, and I, the illegitimate son, suddenly became the sole heir. From that moment, my fate turned upside down. My life was decided single-handedly by my father, but I refused to yield on the matter of marriage. As my father aged, the once dominant lion had to bow down to the rising young one. Eventually, he had to give in. Mia, I extended my hand to my wife. She looked a bit shy and gently placed her hand in mine. I held her fingers tightly, and this time it was a grip that wouldn't be released.